All right, I think we're all up and going, everyone out there. We're waiting for everybody to start making their way over to the live stream. I'm going to shoot a chat out to our friends at the Bixie. Make sure they're there. All right, if you don't know, if you hadn't heard in the previous 5 sessions, we are live streaming from the PoE Texas virtual tour space that we just built. We started it for Bixie. We didn't finish it for Bixie, but we'll get there. In this space, it's a very cool space because it's allowing us to do any kind of automation we want. We've got lights, we've got blinds, we've got doors, we've got access controls, we've got cameras, people counters. Whatever you want to see automated, we can make available in this space. And here's the coolest part. We're loading it up with eye-level cameras that can be remotely controlled from wherever you are, so you can see what you want to see happen in the space. So, if you'd like, hit the chat lines, email us, call us, tell us what you'd like to see, because we will get it up and we can make it live for you here at the PoE Texas Virtual Tour Space. And then eventually it's going to become a 360 virtual tour showing off all the cool things you can do with PoE lighting and automation. So with that, I'm excited about this is the last and arguably the best presentation of our series at Bixie for PoE Texas, because we really wanted to get top professionals for you. So I'm excited to see Lewis. I hope you all have had a great show at Bixie, learned a ton. I know I have, and I am excited to see what's going to happen now that we wrap up with Bixie and what the future is going to bring. For now, though, let's go ahead and get this show started.
Thank you, Tyler. My pleasure
Hold on,
to
Lewis,
be
we're doing
here.
the intro.
Oh,
One sec.
I see the intro now. Sorry.
All right, welcome y'all to this very last Bixie live session with PoE Texas. And I know you've been staring at a screen for almost a week now, and you're probably getting tired of it. Well, if you're like me, it's been almost 8 months of screen sharing, and geez, man, let's get something cool going on. Well, and here's my biggest problem, and Lewis can contribute when he comes on. I haven't got my crab cakes and my pasta bar yet, Bixie. Come on, where's my crab cakes and pasta bar? But I'm going out for crab cakes tonight because I want crab cakes, and they always have them at the Bixie show. It's one of the things I love about going to the Bixie show. But right now, though, we're going to make the next 30 minutes profitable for you, even if you don't get your crab cakes. And as you probably figured out, if you've been watching our live streams and engaging with us, we've gathered the top experts in the world of PoE and asked them to do some quick presentations on relevant topics about Power over Ethernet and intelligent buildings, including concepting, designing, wiring, networking, and wellness. And I've added a link in the chat so you can pull that to see, so you can go back and see all the different sessions that we've done this week and see everything that's been going on for Bixie. Now, I can tell you a secret. We have saved the best for last. We have Mr. Lewis Sau here. Lewis is presently the VP and CTO of Sinclair Digital LLC, as well as an independent digital building consultant in his own consulting practice, Lewis Sau Consulting LLC. And by the way, everyone, I have used his consulting services and found them hugely valuable, so you have a testimonial from me. A 26-year veteran of Cisco, over the last 9 years, Louis has worked tirelessly as a technical leader in Cisco's IoT business unit and was a key member of the team that developed Cisco's digital ceiling and digital building solutions. After the completion of the highly innovative Marriott Sinclair Hotel, Louis left Cisco to pursue his passion of expanding the scope of digital building systems with an ultimate goal of developing a building as a DC microgrid. So with that, you don't want to hear from me anymore. You want to hear from the big man himself. I'm going to turn it over to Louis to talk to you about why to do PoE lighting and automation. So let's see it, Louis.
Thank you so much, Tyler. And it's a pleasure to be here at BIXI again, and look forward to the next BIXI Winter Conference, and hopefully that will be a live event. So we've talked at BIXI a lot about PoE lighting especially. And so here we are, October of 2020. Yes, time is going by very fast. And my original engagement with this technology goes back as far as 2010, 2011. And so for me, it's been a long journey already. And so I still hear people ask, why PoE in buildings? So I figured that I'd go over the next 30 minutes and talk about why PoE as a building infrastructure and how that's starting to change the buildings world. So let's move on. So I'm going to show you a couple of spaces, and I'd like to, hopefully you'll be able to see or guess which of these spaces actually has PoE lighting. So let's look at the first one. Central Iowa Power Cooperative, CIPCO for short. They are a power cooperative in Iowa, as the title says, and they had a fluorescent deployment. And this is going back to 2015. And in 2015, they renovated the space. So as you might guess, this is PoE lighting. It looks no different than any other classroom or meeting space that you would go into in any building anywhere around the world. So you would never know that there's PoE infrastructure behind the scenes, but it's there. So let's look at the next space. This is the famous Signature Aviation Company, also known as BBA Aviation, and this is their headquarters in Orlando, Florida. And in 2018, they moved to a new headquarters, and yes, this is PoE lighting. Again, similar comments from CIPCO. It looks like any other space that you would go into, any other high-end, freshly built headquarters. It just happens to be PoE based. All of the infrastructure is PoE. Not only lighting, but they're actually doing ASHRAE 90.1. By Florida code in office spaces, you have to be able to switch off electrical outlets, 50% of them in office spaces. And so the PoE lighting system is also switching off the outlets whenever there's no occupancy. So it's tied into BMS and other building systems. The third one, this might be an easy guess. This is the Marriott Sinclair Hotel in Fort Worth, Texas, the highly acclaimed Marriott Sinclair. Yes, this is PoE lighting. Every fixture and style that you see here is very different than what you see in an office setting, whether it was the CIPCO example or the Signature Aircraft example. Every one of these lights is PoE. And so I've often been asked, are you limited into what kind of fixtures you can bring into a job? And the answer is no. If you really want to do everything PoE, you can do everything PoE. It's possible, and it's been done. This fourth example, Cisco's headquarters, Building 10 in San Jose, California. Yes, this is also PoE. And this was done in 2015 as well. So, you know, we're in 2020, 5 years ago, these spaces were being built with PoE. There's huge advantages that we're going to discuss as to why do PoE for lighting and other infrastructure. But the point is, it is new technology, but it's not new. It's not that old of a technology. So PoE as an infrastructure has been around obviously for 20 years, powering phones and then physical security cameras. And over time, as the amount of power on the switch port increased, we found new uses for the technology. And the benefits to a building are just amazing. So let's look into the reasons. Why do we have PoE for building infrastructure? So the first category is what I call enhanced occupant experiences. And with PoE, you can bring in a variety of different sensors. So if you look at a traditional line voltage lighting system, you're basically stuck with what it's capable of. And generally, the sensors that are available for a lighting system are ambient light. So you can detect the amount of light coming in from an external window, such as what you see in this photo in the background there. And for energy, the energy code, the modern energy code, whether it's Title 24 or control energy codes, they require you to dim lights that have a certain amount of external light coming in, because you have the light that you need in that space. So why power up the fixture to full power when you don't need it? You have an external light source. The other sensor that you usually have in a lighting system is an occupant sensor. And so when there's movement, you trigger the lights to be on, and those the code for those occupant sensors have been getting more and more tight in terms of how often you have to turn the lights off. And actually, the modern energy code requires that the lights be off and they come on when they actually detect movement in the space. So it's actually gotten to that opposite mode setting. But with PoE, we're now able to bring in other types of sensors, everything from gunshot, temperature, humidity, all sorts of other mechanisms. So you can start creating these really, really interesting use cases. And so this slide I have because obviously this year has been a very different kind of year with COVID and has impacted so many of us around the world. And so in the business world, as people start to go back to operating out of their businesses, enterprises are looking at what are the use cases that they can deploy. And really, the ones that have done the PoE infrastructure, they're better prepared to utilize the building infrastructure to prepare their workplace as a recovery as people start coming back after the COVID crisis. So you can do things like there are partners that have UVC lights that clean after hours. Obviously, nobody can be in the space because UVC itself is harmful to humans, but it actually disinfects the space. And it's a technology that's been around, and it's primarily been around in healthcare, but now we're looking at applications in the actual enterprise space. You have HVAC integration. So I'm aware of people that are putting in UVC lights in HVAC systems, and then you can coordinate the light with occupants in space. You can do room automation. The big use case that enterprises are looking for are space usage and space utilization, so that you can then trigger cleaning after the spaces have been utilized. So let's look at the next category, which is safety. And for this, I have a very interesting video that I will ask Tyler to go ahead and play. Tyler.
As I am still downloading that video, can I have about 30 seconds? Can we go to the next slide and I'll have it up in just a second?
Absolutely. Okay, that works. Sustainability. So obviously, PoE is very disruptive to the standard building practice. But let's look at the factors in terms of sustainability that PoE brings to the table. We're looking at enterprises now preparing for the workforce of the future. The workforce of the future is younger. They actually vote with a lot of their decisions are based on the future, and sustainability is one of those things that they advocate and require and actually vote with their wallets for. So enterprises are looking at what sustainable measures they can bring to the table. PoE is bringing sustainability. It's disruptive because it changes the entire electrical infrastructure, as you well know, and eliminates metal, which is found in conduit. It reduces the amount of copper that's in use, especially if you use a distributed network where now you're using short cable runs between very strategically placed switches and nearby endpoints. It's also the only globally accepted electrical standard, so the larger enterprises look for cookie cutter approaches to the enterprise, and with PoE, it's the one approach that they can actually deploy anywhere in the world, and it would be accepted because PoE is the only global accepted electrical standard. Whereas with line AC power, here in the US, in commercial buildings, you'll use 120 or 277. In Europe, you might use 240. And you have to worry about 50 hertz, 60 hertz, all these different types of electrical connectors. And with PoE, it's the same technology everywhere around the world. Another aspect of PoE is, as Tyler mentioned in my introduction, one of the things that I've been working for or towards is in designing a building as a DC microgrid. And when you do that, and you're using the power distribution as a DC infrastructure, the PoE part then becomes that last mile where the switches themselves can be powered via DC energy. And PoE is obviously DC, which now prepares you to use renewables in a building. And so there's been a lot of criticism on the use of renewables, saying that they're not really energy efficient. And part of that criticism is because of the way things have been traditionally built. You have AC as a power distribution system in a building. And so you have to take that DC power that's generated by a solar panel, convert it to AC line voltage. That conversion will cost you almost 20% in energy, resulting in heat. Then when you get to the end device, you have to move it back to DC to actually use it, whether it's a light, whether it's a display, or most any other device in a building, which nowadays are all DC devices. So by using a DC microgrid or an all DC building, you eliminate that double conversion, which makes the energy consumption much more efficient. And so it reduces those conversion losses and provides you a very, very energy optimized building. Tyler, how are we doing on that video?
I'm ready to go. Do you want me to turn it on?
Bring it on.
Hi, I'm Chad Jones, Technical Leader at Cisco Systems, Chair of 802.3BT, the newest Power over Ethernet standard, and Principal Member of CMP3. I'm here today to demonstrate the safety of Power over Ethernet systems. I have a standard Category 5 cable connected to a Cisco 9300 with no other connections to the switch except for the power connection. So we're not trying to pull off any magic tricks here. We have a simple PoE setup. And here I have a Cisco 1130 access point. I'm going to plug it into the PoE system. But first, I'll take this. Nothing. And I plug it into the AP. The AP powers up. I'll take the AP. Oops! I dropped it in the water and it immediately shut off. Did you see that? So the power over Ethernet system sensed the short and immediately shut it off. There's no power after a very short period. I plug it back in, and I may have killed the AP on top of everything else. But I can take this same cable, not touching anything else, and plug it into this access point, and it boots up. So you can see that the switch, the PoE system itself, sensed the short circuit, shut the power off very quickly, and nothing bad happened anywhere. So that's PoE. So now for my next demonstration, I'm going to take this toaster, and nah, I don't need to do that. You guys know what happens then. Thank you very much for watching my video.
All right, Lewis, he didn't do the toaster, which made me feel more comfortable about the video.
What you didn't see is that actually a couple of days later, he takes that same access point and plugs it back into the switch after it's had a couple of days to dry out, and it came right back up. So there was no harm done throughout this process. So obviously, PoE is safer. And if you think about a building, it's not only for the workers that have to work with the infrastructure and move, change, and adds, moves, and changes to the infrastructure. It's also for the users. If water comes into a building, there's less risk of being shocked, and it will have benefits in terms of insurance ratings over time. It will also have benefits. I think the fire marshals, one fire marshal that I talked to one time, a comment was made that about 30% of the commercial building fires are actually generated from electrical shorts. And so this is a way of reducing those, or at least concentrating them to the electrical rooms in buildings. Another aspect that makes PoE an ideal infrastructure, obviously, is flexibility. It doesn't require an electrician to be installed, even though there have been attempts by electrical unions and such to kind of take over this aspect. It doesn't require a capital construction project. It's a plug-and-play technology, so it's very easy to expand, change, and move out. Most of the infrastructure is fixed in a commercial building anyways, so I don't expect a lot of plugging and unplugging of cables to redo spaces, unless the spaces actually change use. And then the infrastructure, that's the best part, is that the infrastructure can be leveraged for multiple systems. So we talk about lighting because lighting is disruptive and it's new, but obviously physical security cameras have been around for a long time. Variable air valves have been around for a while. But now, if you look on the right side of the slide, you see all these different devices in schools. Clocks have standardized on PoE, clocks and speakers. You have things like ceiling fans. Also in schools now, I hear a desire to do USB-C charging as students are provided laptops, and they go back to the school and they may not have to charge their laptop, or they're running low. And so there's a need, and you don't want to put an outlet near a student where somebody could maliciously try to plug something into the power and cause shock and harm the student. Obviously, other things, motorized curtains, blinds, even things that are not on this slide. With the Marriott Sinclair Hotel, we actually have the mini bars that are PoE powered. So there's so many different kinds of devices that are new in the market. I have a list of about 300 manufacturers of all sorts of different PoE devices, and just do a search and you see new things coming on just about every day. You also have the benefit of improved management, and that's actually one of the parts that has been difficult in the buildings world, where management really doesn't have much visibility in the past, hasn't had visibility on how spaces are being used. They usually, they're informed of problems because of complaints that the users experience, so everything's complaint-based. And now by having management capabilities, we can actually tell when things go down and use a management system, just like any network management application, to create a new type of building management system that can alert you when devices go down. PoE inherently has dynamic power budgets, and because of that, there's a lot of instrumentation that makes that electrical circuit very, very smart, as you saw with the safety demonstration. And that metering now, you can take the data and expose it and provide energy metering capabilities. And that will contribute towards LEED points for buildings that are trying to achieve the LEED building standard. Because of connectivity, you now also are able to expose data that's normally locked in these closed systems. An example of that is the motion sensors. With a traditional line voltage lighting system, you have no idea, nor do you, people haven't been really very interested in movement in the building. But now, because of things like COVID, there's actually a desire to have information about how many people are in spaces. And using the occupant sensors, people counters, and other sensors, we can actually provide that data. And it's the PoE infrastructure that facilitates the power and control of all these devices. Also, the ability to collect data so that the maintenance staff can go in and do cleaning operations in spaces as they're used. That's all very, very beneficial, especially now as we look to go back to work after COVID. And then we'll talk about cost. There's always been this assumption that, gee, the PoE infrastructure is going to be expensive. You have to go buy these switches. But what a lot of people don't realize is that there's these huge savings, because every time you remove line power, each circuit that you remove actually has an effect on the entire electrical infrastructure in the building. So you remove one circuit, that frees up more space on an electrical panel. And so one of the things that the owner of the Sinclair Hotel realized, that as he first deployed PoE in his office building and in CVS in his office building and other places that he has, he learned the value that not only are you removing high-cost labor for electrical work, but you're actually freeing up because the PoE aspect is far more managed than the less technical traditional line voltage electrical system. Those systems have to be over-engineered. So typically you take all the amount of circuits, outlets within a given power circuit. It's got to be rated for 80% of the amount of the circuit breaker. And that circuit breaker then at the panel, you do the same kind of math, and you can only provide 80% of the amount of power coming to that panel. And so it's over-engineered. And many of these electrical circuits are idle and not in use. And that's because the system is not intelligent like a PoE system is. So the idea is that PoE doesn't have to be more expensive. At worst, it should be as expensive as a line voltage system. But if you start tweaking the design, and you actually do the design as the plans come together for a building, rather than try to take a line voltage system and convert it to PoE, there's huge savings. And at Sinclair, we were actually able to save 25%. It would have been actually 35%, but there were some new devices that had not been yet converted to PoE at the time that the electrical contracts were signed. So the savings was 25%. And as you can see from the footnote, the building actually went from 4,000 amp service down to 3,000 amp service. So in summary, buildings, the technology is already transforming itself. Look around, devices in buildings, they're already DC powered on the inside. It's that final plug to the wall that we're looking to change and make that DC. And once we do have a DC building, it'll be far more energy efficient. PoE is an essential component of this digital transformation, and it enables enhanced building experiences. It makes buildings safer. It makes the building infrastructure more flexible, more sustainable, better managed, and potentially at a lower cost. It is actually part of a smart building, very essential component of a smart building. An important thing to note, it's been around for a while. There's millions of square feet that have been deployed, millions more of square feet in process. You've seen some of the pictures of some of these deployments, and I urge you to further investigate this technology as you continue your careers. Thank you so much. And Tyler, do we have any questions in the chat line?
Yeah, we did have an interesting question. Morgan reached out to me through Vixie and asked, I'm really interested in the aerospace industry. Do you do, or is there anything out there for the aerospace payload customer?
Interesting question. Not yet, at least not that I've been involved. I do know that there are definitely applications in aerospace and marine. Again, it's about, if you have a distributed network, you can save lots of cable bulk. That's very, very important in ships, whether they're in the air or in the water. So reducing cable bulk and still providing power and communications to these devices. So a great question. And if you have opportunities where I can be involved, I would be more than happy to get involved.
Okay, great. So Louis, I think a big question that has come up and people have asked me multiple times is, how do you make this, like the case to a building manager, like, and this is an important question because a lot of people come in and are like, okay, just replace my electrical system with PoE and it should be cheaper, right? But there's a different conversation that needs to happen, and you had mentioned it on the last slide. What's the different conversation you need to have to help people understand, in order to fully capture the savings that you're talking about, what steps do they need to take?
So the important thing there, Tyler, the observation is you have to have the conversation and actually design the space for PoE from the actual conceptual discussion of the building. If you don't do that, what happens is that the architects and the MEPs, they do what they normally do. And people have cookie cutter approaches. I mean, it's normal, right? You leverage your lessons learned from the past and you just bring them into the next project. And so the world is used to designing for line voltage. And so you end up with a line voltage design, not only from the electrical perspective, but from fixtures and everything else. And so once the design documents are completed, now to redesign it in PoE, you have change orders you have to deal with and time. And you also run the risk that the electrical bits have gone out. And once they went out with line voltage, those bidders are not going to give any money back or credits back to simply move it to PoE. And so that's where a lot of these projects get become dangerous, where it was originally designed for line voltage, and now you're trying to flip it back to PoE at the last minute. And so you're going to say, hey, well, I didn't really save anything. And that's because all the risk, let's say the electricians that now have to run category cable, they're going to stick you a premium just from a risk perspective in case they didn't estimate it correctly, because it's something that they're not used to doing. So you want to design it for PoE from the get-go, and that involves having the conversation. And it really, the conversation is, what is your building strategy? And start discussing your building strategy before you start going down the path of individual projects.
Okay, very good, great feedback. Well, one of our favorite guests, our audience members, Tommy, just said, sent you a big thank you and a shout out. And frankly, we have used our 30-minute time slot. So for those of you who have questions for Louis or would like to engage with him, he's going to move over to our Bixie Live session, so he'll be over in the chat room in Bixby. So why don't we go ahead and wrap it up, and I'll bring myself back up. I'm sorry, I know you have to put up with this ugly mug, so sorry about that. Let's go ahead and wrap it up though. So Louis, fantastic presentation. All of you out there, send a chat to Louis, telling him thank you, letting him know how much you appreciate his time and energy. You've seen so much of the intelligent building world, Louis. It's really impressive, and thank you for sharing your lessons learned and your insight into the industry. If you'd like to chat or talk with Louis directly, you can find him right after this live stream at our Bixby booth, where you can discuss any of the projects you'd like his help with or on any products. Now, if you're not registered or don't have your pass, you can follow a link I've put in the chat line to get into Bixby for free, which is the right price if you ask me. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is all the Bixby presentations we have for you this week. We certainly hope you've enjoyed this very different Bixby show. We hope that we'll all be back face to face in the winter conference, crab cakes and all, and hopefully we can enjoy the rest of the world when we come back together. So thank you very much for joining us. Go back and watch all the previous sessions, tons of great information, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Y'all have a great time.
Thank you, Tyler.
Thank you, Louis.